If only we were on the same time every day. It is Blair and Barker.
Well, tell them why you were late. Because you told me something, and I can't believe you, and you're trying to pull it up to basically tell me that you weren't lying to me. Because I still can't believe that.
Well, we were we're going to be joined by Jesse Rogers of ESPN in a few minutes. And we're going to talk about the Chicago White Sox, who, of course, tied the American League record with their 21st consecutive loss last night. And
it's the worst team you ever covered.
God almighty, I've covered some bad ones.
That were 27 and 88? Obviously not, but close to that?
Probably not. I mean, there were some pretty dire Blue Jays teams. Okay, this is Front Office Sports. May 23rd, 2024. Talking about highest paid managers in baseball. Okay, Craig Counsell, we know, is making $8 million a year. We know that, and you know, that's the highest paid by far. We know that Torey Lovullo of the Diamondbacks makes $5 million. And manager salaries, it's odd. It's like this industry will tell you how much everybody at single A is making. But try to find out how much a GM or manager makes. That's like state secrets. Torey Lovullo makes $5 million. Bruce Bochy makes $4.5. Now, this is, according to this, Alex Cora is making $3 million, but we know he got a bump up.
Mm-hmm. Starts next year, maybe.
Right.
Yeah.
So Bochy, 4.5, Washington, 4, Vogt, 4, Melvin, 4, Schilt, 4, Snitker, 4, Martinez, 3.5, Boone, 3.3, Dave Roberts, 3.25. Now, again, this is from Kevin Cash, by the way, makes $1 million. David Bell does too. Matt Quattraro is on this list. John Schneider is not on this list.
That means I'll be buying dinner, don't it?
Now, the second highest paid manager, and I don't even know if I want to say this because I really have a hard time
he's
believing
not second highest. Right now he is?
Well, he's making Pedro Grifol of the Chicago White Sox, according to this, makes $5.5 million.
Holy. Well, now we know why he's very comfortable coming out and saying whatever he wants to say. Now we know why.
I mean,
that's crazy.
That's crazy.
It is.
That can't be right. What is right, though, is that since the Chicago White Sox last won a baseball game, as our friend Jason Stark pointed out, 197 different pitchers have won games.
Wow.
Since the Chicago White Sox last won a game. That is 21 games ago. So Jesse Rogers will join us. We'll talk about the White Sox. It's the longest losing streak since the 1988 Baltimore Orioles lost 21 in a row. The National League record is 61 Phillies, who lost 23 straight. And the White Sox, of course, have a shot to do that after being beaten 5-1 by the Oakland Athletics last night. Your Blue Jays will open a 3-game series against the Baltimore Orioles. We haven't forgotten about the Blue Jays. Thinking we've forgotten about the Blue Jays. They'll open a 3-game series against the Orioles tonight, 7:07 at the Rogers Center. Grayson Rodriguez against Chris Bassett. The Blue Jays lineup is as follows. Springer Loperfido in left field, making his Rogers Center debut as a member of the Blue Jays. Guerrero at first. Horwitz is the DH. Alejandro Kirk is behind the plate. Dalton Varsho is in center. Ernie Clement is the shortstop. Addison Barges at third base. Leo Jimenez gets a start at second base. Something that John Schneider said they were
Jays.
They were going to pretty much.
Yeah.
Something John Schneider said they wanted to look at for the rest of the season, not just playing Leo Jimenez at short, but at second. And I think he also said maybe some third. I could be wrong. I thought he said maybe some third base as well. So we'll have Buck Martinez joining us. This is going to be a lot of fun. Ryan Dempster, Roch Kubatko will be along. He is Masson's Baltimore Orioles reporter. And, as I said,
you depressed me with the
Chicago White Sox
money the managers make. Vote for the Guardians is a surprise.
If you need a good news story, the Dodgers beating the Phillies 5-3 last night, and Freddie Freeman making a return to the diamond after his son was hospitalized and put in a ventilator. Freddie Freeman making an emotional return to the Dodgers, and there was a terrific camera shot when he reached first base of Bryce Harper giving him a hug, and then we find out that, as Freddie Freeman says, Bryce Harper had been texting him 4 times a day since he was, I guess, in the past 3
Bryce
or
is a
4
good
days.
dude. The little time I got to know him and hang out with him, other than him falling asleep in a spring training game, which is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. He's like 16.
Filling up his car in his Phillies uniform.
Well, I mean, when you drop 330 on somebody, you can fill your tank up any way you want to fill it up.
But I think a lot of guys drive in their uniforms to some of the games. Anyhow, I think they do.
No, they don't.
I think they do.
No, they don't.
I think they do.
I was in camp a bazillion times. I've never seen that.
Yeah, but if you're going from like Clearwater to Dunedin, I'm sure guys do. Anyhow.
I guess it's like a mile.
Yeah.
But I guess. I
Anyhow.
can get the club and go fill it up for you.
He didn't want to.
No, he didn't.
Maybe
he's one of a kind.
He is a man of the people.
Yeah.
So anyhow, no surprise in the Blue Jays lineup tonight. As I said, this is what we are going to see the rest of the year.
Yeah,
Guys are going to get an extended run.
Well, I'm sure this is the conversation that John was having with the veteran pitching staff. Was, you know how the infield's going to look? Just don't look back here. We're trying to figure out if they're part of the future or not. And the only way we're going to do that is to see them. We're going to have to run them out there, and you're going to have to be a part of it.
I like that line. Don't
so
look
if you make a decent pitch and the play's not made, don't look in the dugout. I've already told you that what we're doing, and we have a plan. We have a plan, and the plan is hopefully that we're not having every single one of the kids that came up from Buffalo on the team next year because he didn't do anything in the offseason. Hopefully that's the plan. Hopefully we get some no-brainers on our team, and you're running out some better talent.
Let me ask you this.
Let's not lie.
Joey Votto is going to be up here at some point.
Is he?
Well, he's getting hits.
I guess.
He's playing. Well, at this point, of course he's going to be up here. Do you like that?
Not really. But I don't want to be the old man on the get off my lawn thing.
No, that's usually me.
Yeah, I don't get it. Why is Joey doing this? Can you explain that to me? If you were in Joey's shoes, you can't say anybody that's listening to this show sitting on their couch can't say that if they were in Joey's shoes, they'd get through this. They'd be a part of any of this. Like, what's Joey doing? I think that's the question you got to ask yourself. Again, I'm not a future Hall of Famer, and how dare I even speak about Joey Votto, but man alive, really? Like, unless you're out of money, which I'm assuming there's no way. I mean, he's made $1 bazillion, but
don't you
really,
think, though, the chance to wrap up your career in your hometown? I mean, I could see where that would have.
Jeff, he's a future Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's fine.
What if he comes to the big leagues and he goes 0 for 50?
Well,
0 for 50. He could do that. He's 100. Like, he could.
So that's going to affect his Hall of Fame
no, that's not. No, but.
So he's a Hall of Famer regardless.
Yeah, that's what people tell us.
Okay, he's a Hall of Famer regardless. What's the downside to having him up here? Maybe put a few bums in the seats. Maybe put a nice bow in his career.
I guess. I guess that's what you want to do. That's okay. I mean, again,
you got no feel for the romance of the game, do you? You really don't.
I guess.
You have no feel for the romance of the game.
I'm a common sense guy. I'm a common sense guy because how I ended my career and what it took to even get to the end of my career. And if you're fortunate enough to just go out on your own terms.
And that's what Joey Votto is doing.
This is it?
Apparently, because
this is it.
You don't clearly it is.
Yeah, I know what
you think somebody's forcing Joey Votto to do this?
No.
So clearly this is how he wants to go out, and I have no problem with him wanting to go out this way.
I guess.
Joey's
a good dude.
Is it going to harm this team?
Joey will do what Joey wants to do, and obviously that's the Blue Jays organization is going to let him do that. So more power to you.
I'll tell you why I like it.
I wouldn't do that.
I'll tell you why I like it. Because it's going to create an issue with at-bats, and it's going to mean that this idea of Spencer Horwitz doing anything other than playing second base, from now on, as soon as Joey Votto gets up here, I want Spencer Horwitz at second base every day. I want to see if he can be a second baseman. I don't want him playing first base. I don't want him DHing. Joey and Vladdy can play the DH
You're
first
the only
base game
person
if they
that would
want.
use Joey Votto to overthink how they're going to use Spencer Horwitz.
No, I'm just
like
saying.
Spencer's going to be here. If he's going to be on the team next year, he will be that if they don't go out and get a legitimate everyday third baseman. He will be that
Second
roving
baseman.
guy. No, third baseman. Third baseman.
That's dumb.
It is not dumb.
It's
like
dumb.
Johns even came out and said this. Like it's going to be like it is dumb when you close your eyes and think about it.
Yeah.
But boy, it sure sounds that way. No,
Have you seen him play second base?
Horwitz?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well,
and I like him because he can hit and he can handle a bat and he's left-handed.
Well, then why?
That's why I like him. But to think that he's only going to play second base next year, you're kidding yourself, buddy.
Jesus.
You are kidding yourself.
Well, I mean,
I don't think you can say that either. Oh man!
Yeah, God forbid that this team should have stability at any position. It's much better to be versatile.
You haven't been watching the Jays lately? Ah, come on. But you are the only person that would use Joey Votto to bring that up.
No,
you are the only person.
No, I'm just saying that if it forces their hand into keeping Spencer Horwitz at second base, and forget this idiocy of Vladdy going to third and Spence. Just stop it. Just stop it. It's like just stop it.
You could say that 17 more times. They're not listening. Like they're not. They're not. I mean, good. Look, if people want to run and get Joey Votto jerseys and cheer for Joey, Joey's a great dude. Joey's earned it. If Joey wants to do this,
you would have made a crap writer. You have no sense of the narrative. You have no sense of the inherent romance of baseball.
Yeah, I could just see somebody throwing a bat and hitting Joey in the knee, him getting a half in it bad. That's rude, isn't it?
That is rude.
That is rude. I root for Joey. I'm a big fan of Joey.
I root for Joey. I'm a big fan of Joey. I just spent all year criticizing him.
I wouldn't do it, but more power to Joey.
Anyhow. He hasn't even played
the
majors yet, and we're arguing about it.
Well, you're saying Spencer Horwitz. There, you take time away from Spencer.
No, I'm not. I'm saying it'll stop the idiocy of Spencer Horwitz playing any position other than the one he needs to play next year. All right, let's get to Jesse Rogers, national MLB reporter with ESPN. Jesse, thanks for doing this. These are the types of discussions you have when your team stinks. Well, actually,
they're good. They're okay.
Yeah. Well, anyway.
They're not the White Sox.
Speaking of stinks,
no.
Yeah, right.
Okay, first thing, you got to clear this up for me. Now, sports, front office sports, which, I mean, this just for giggles, I Googled Pedro Grifol to see how much money he made. And I shouldn't do this. Does he really make $5.5 million?
Absolutely not. No. I don't know where that came from. That's bounced around. No, he's in your rookie salary class, which is $1 million, maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, something like that.
Okay,
yeah.
So all the rage
where that happened.
Yeah, good. We can forget the rage.
Possible, maybe it's possible somebody conflated the total package that he's getting paid to a yearly salary, but I'm not even sure it was that. So, but it's more like the $1 million range.
Oh, okay, so that's good. So now that explains why he's. No, I was going to say that explains why they are where they are, but it really doesn't. You know, I was going to ask you, what are the White Sox right now? I mean, if we operate under the assumption you're never as good as when you've won 10 games in a row and you're never as bad as when you've lost 10 games in a row, I don't know how to – what do you say about when you lose 21 games in a row?
Yeah, I mean, some people there, and Tommy Pham, who was traded, I talked to him afterwards, they'll try to paint the picture that they're a little bit closer than that number would indicate. They've blown 42 leads this year. The next team has blown 30. So there's been a lot of bullpen issues that have really derailed a lot of their season, meaning it's worse than it was. The point of this is all they were supposed to. I mean, it was going to be bad going into the year. But no matter whatever situation you're in, you're supposed to make the most of it, right? Make the most of a bad situation. They've made the worst of a bad situation. So a lot of that goes back to Grifol and the leadership on that team over the last couple of years. It's been just completely zilch, basically. And Grifol is not the leader that you want in these kind of moments. And look, if he was the right leader, they'd be losing 99 to 100 games but that's the difference between, that and maybe setting a record. So that's where we're at. Last year, in some ways, was even worse because they were expected to be decent, and it fell apart to 101 losses. This year, they're expected to lose about 101, and it's just been that much worse.
Jesse, where do you start off season? Like, what's the first move the White Sox need to make or should make?
Yeah, I mean, the Grifol is going to be dismissed in short order here, whether it's this week or in 6 weeks. It's going to be very soon. So you start over with a new manager. It was a bad fit, especially this year, but even the last couple of years for Grifol. He's just a little bit too earnest. That's the word I'd use. You have to understand what hand you've been dealt, especially this year as the front office turned over the roster, completely new pitching staff. I've never seen that. 12 out of 13 new pitchers, and the one holdover was Michael Kopech. He got moved to the bullpen, so 5 new starters, and now Kopech's gone. So how are you supposed to do anything when you turn over your entire pitching staff? So that's what they're in full rebuild mode. They're turning over their position player group next. Luis Robert will probably be traded, Garrett Crochet. So new manager, a little less earnest to him, and more of a teacher, babysitter type is needed. And then you just bring up a bunch of young players and let them grow, just like any 100-loss team would do. So they're no different than any other rebuilding team. They're just going to lose more than all those rebuilding teams. And then you start over with a teacher, a babysitter, and let it grow. They do have some good pitching in their organization. It just has to grow.
Yeah, a former manager or a former player would be a good place to start, maybe. It sounds to me like babysitter. I know you mentioned that a couple of times. I know if I'm a young player coming up, I'd like to go to a former player. Brzezinski, I know his name's been thrown out there. I know I heard him on his podcast. He basically said, I have no idea what people are talking about. I was just there with the White Sox. They basically want nothing to do with me. I guess they're mad at him because he said something or said some things about the organization, how bad it is and how people need to fix it, whatever he said. But is that sort of what you're talking about? Maybe as a former player, you get some credibility with maybe that voice, maybe that face every single day for a White Sox fan.
Look, it doesn't have to be a former player, but that quality doesn't hurt. When I use the word babysitter, I don't mean that in sort of a negative tone. I just mean someone that's not going to put themselves on the front page, on the headline, because that's kind of what Grifol has done these last couple of years. Like at this point, you should be seen, not heard. Now I know managers have to talk every day, but just go try to develop and oversee this thing, and it might be a point A to point B person. Like I said, it should be just like any other rebuilding team, but for some reason they're even worse, and so they really need to start over with their position players as well. Their hitters are terrible. I mean, the organization's bad. Let's face it. And the way I describe it best to people that don't follow it every day is, take a professional organization. You hope that they are operating at 95 to 100% capacity. The White Sox operate at like 70% capacity, and that impacts all areas. That could be development, drafting, free agent signing, payroll. I think you know what I mean when I say something is operating at 65, 70% capacity. Then the other side of that is the Tampa Bay Rays. They operate at 110% capacity, and the Cleveland Guardians and the Milwaukee Brewers. So that's how I view the White Sox. It's deeper than just the moment in time. Ownership is a disaster right now. He's owning the team like it's the 90s, not 2024.
Which brings me to my next question. Can I blame Tony La Russa for this, just so I feel better?
You can, and a lot of people in Chicago are, but in hindsight, his return actually wasn't as bad. And I actually was someone that really focused on the front office these last few years, where a lot of people were focused on Tony La Russa. Yeah, he wasn't the best choice, but I'm telling you, the front office and ownership got them in this position, not any one person like Tony La Russa. Now, they didn't follow up Tony La Russa with a winning choice in Pedro Grifol. They've made things worse, but this team, this situation is on ownership more than anything. I don't know if you read my article last year when I talked to a former pitcher, Keenan Middleton.
Yes.
And the phrase he used was manure runs downhill. I didn't know what else to say. Crap runs downhill. He used a much more derogatory term. And it starts at the top, and that's the truth. It starts at the top. And so, most people in Chicago want him to sell the team and start over there. But short of that, they just need to strip it down to its, most basic self and start over with a young prospect group coming up.
Sorry.
I'm just going to jump in here. I had a text exchange with an agent after the trade deadline, and we started talking about Garrett Crochet, and this guy is not with Crochet's agency, but he said I asked him what he thought about it. He said, honestly, I think Garrett may have done the White Sox a bit of a solid because he said, I think you get maximum value for him moving him in the offseason once all this nonsense is out of the way.
Yep.
How do you feel about that? And I know I'm not entirely certain Chris Getz would share that opinion, but how much of an issue is that going to be going forward for the White Sox?
I don't think it's a big one. I think that agent is kind of right. You will now get a fully stretched out, ready-made number 1, number 2 starter in Garrett Crochet. Of course, maybe you get that extra prospect if you get 2 years and 2 months of control instead of just 2 years. But really, he was not going to pitch much down the stretch, by his own accord. I get it. Look, the bottom line is he traded in any chance at a World Series to protect the rest of his career. And I don't say that in a derogatory manner. In fact, other players have stood up for him. And someone asked me, well, if he got traded to the Dodgers, would he really look Mookie Betts and Freddie Freeman in the face and say, I'm not pitching? And how would they react? And I think they'd react okay. I think players now advocate for themselves more than ever. And there was a time where we would have said, how dare he trade a chance at a World Series for his own career? But times have changed, and we see what happens to pitchers. They're used up and thrown aside. And he's guaranteed $0 next year. So if he blew out in October this year, he'd go from potentially $100 million deal in the future to zero. So I sort of get it. And I don't think Getz is losing much because it's still 2 full years of control, and you get the best of Garrett Crochet moving forward.
Jesse, am I crazy by saying this is the biggest game of the year for the White Sox? You look at their schedule. You look at who they're playing. I know Jeff is laughing at me.
Well, no, I'm not.
But when you're part of a record like this, I mean, not letting it go any festering any longer is probably a big deal. I would think this is the biggest game, especially if you look at the White Sox schedule. They got the A's tonight, as you well know, the A's tomorrow, and then the Cubs, the Yankees, the Astros, and the Giants. If not tonight or tomorrow, Jesse, when would be the question?
Well, I'm based in Chicago. I'm a reporter who likes storylines, and the White Sox the White Sox staring down a record-breaking 24-game losing streak facing the Cubs on Friday is too juicy to pass up.
Writes itself, my friend, writes itself.
Yeah, it's exactly right. Having said that, tonight is their best chance. They have a young pitcher, Jonathan Cannon, who had a really good July, 5 starts, 12 earned runs. Ross Stripling, 3rd start back from injury. Tonight is the night. I agree with you there. Yep. I think if they lose tonight, they lose tomorrow. Now, all bets are off come Friday, Saturday. The Cubs are no world beaters either. So Crochet's scheduled to pitch Friday. Even if you get 4 good ones out of him, it might set you up for a win. So I don't disagree. It looks bad if you can't get a win against the A's. But at some point, I mean, the Yankees, they won't beat. I agree with you there. So let's see. I think tonight they win. I actually do. Put me down for that. Burn the tape if they lose 10-1.
Yeah, Jesse, these other teams, if they don't win tonight or tomorrow, the teams that they're facing that are better teams than they are going to be facing them like it's the 7th game of the World Series because they don't want to be the team that they beat, right? So I just, again, I don't have any, fighting this or horse in this race, but man alive, if you're a baseball fan, and I saw the camera panning over to the dudes that were sitting in that dugout last night, Jesse, as you well know, it's just they're looking around at each other going, to you, because I don't. How do we do it? I feel for them.
They're going to need to sort of run into a win because they are certainly not – they don't have the vibe of going out and getting one and taking it. Someone said, are they going through the motions? And I said yes with a caveat because they are major league players. It's not like they're not taking batting practice or not taking ground balls. But within that, I think they're going through the motions. You know what I mean? They're doing all the things they're supposed to do, but I don't think they're ready to run through a wall for Pedro Grifol to get this win. We haven't seen any sort of, I don't know what you want to call it, fight, urgency. I know it can look bad, when you're playing bad, but it feels like they have to get lucky to get a win. And maybe tonight's the night. A great starting pitching performance is the key because their bullpen is horrendous.
Yep.
Jesse, really good of you to do this, man. Thanks so much for your sake. I hope that I hope it ends against the Cubs one way or another.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I mean, if it ends now, it's an easier Friday night for me. If it doesn't, then we have a better storyline.
Awesome. Good luck, Jesse.
Okay.
Be well, my friend. Thanks for this.
Take care.
See ya.
Jesse Rogers, national MLB reporter with ESPN. We're going to take a break, come back. Ryan Dempster, speaking of guys who've pitched in Chicago, he'll join us next. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fad at Sportsnet. All right, welcome back to Blair and Barker. 7:07 is the first pitch tonight.
We're not going to another break.
Why?
Because Grafal's the richest manager in the history of the sport, and what you just said to me.
What, the Bud Black's going to be hired to be in the Blue Jays front office?
That's not what you said. That's not what you said.
I'm just throwing that out there. I have no idea if there's any accuracy.
That is the worst thing you've ever said. Yeah, he's done a really good job in Colorado. Really good job.
Friends take care of friends. And he and Mark Shapiro are friends. Just saying.
Man, I need to get me some friends like that.
Huh?
I need to get me some friends like that.
You have one.
I do. Who?
7:07 is the first pitch tonight at the Rogers
Debatable.
Center. Grayson Rodriguez against Chris Bassett. As we mentioned, the Jays lineup is as follows: Springer, Loperfido, Guerrero, Spencer Horwitz, Kirk Varsho, Clement, Barger, Leo Jimenez at second, Chris Bassett on the mound. As the Jays get the chance to play spoiler for 3 games, and then they've got some easier teams, shall we say, coming in to face them. Ryan Dempster is, don't look at me like that, Parker. Ryan Dempster is host of Intentional Talk on MLB Networks, former MLB pitcher World Series champion. And
yeah.
Okay, that's all right. He joins us on Blair and Barker. It sounded like a rooster for a minute there. I was a little concerned, but that's okay. Hey, before Barker asks you all sorts of penetrating questions, I do want to talk to you about the White Sox and the Cubs, because we just had Jesse Rogers on, and we were talking about the 21-game losing streak the White Sox are in. And Jesse was saying, there is a scenario where if the White Sox can help us out and lose 2 more games in Oakland, they may end up going up against the Cubs, which with a chance to set the all-time record or break it. That would be a good story as a former Chicago Cubs pitcher, would it not?
For everybody that's not in a White Sox uniform or in that organization, sure. I think that might be fun for media to have. But nothing is worse than when both teams in town are struggling or one of the teams is really bad. I got to be a part of the crosstown rivalry, if you call it. I think it's more of a fan-based rivalry than player-based, but and nothing better when both teams are good. So it sucks that they're going through what they're going through right now. There's nothing worse than coming to the ballpark for 3 weeks and losing every game.
Damn, I know they're talking about Grafal and getting rid of him at the end of the season or next week or tomorrow or in the next hour, whenever they're going to get rid of him. How many former players do you know that would run to have that job and be a part of? I guess that's a rebuild. I mean, it seems to me like a little bit more than that. Like they're just breaking that completely down and blowing it up. Former players, would they be interested in that, you think?
Maybe. I think some of them, obviously, I mean, a chance to manage a big league ball club, it'd be hard not to if that's your interest. But, yeah, there's obviously, I think it's more than just something on the field. There's a lot of disconnect there as you watch it. I'm not down there all the time, but there's obviously clearly some struggles and not really having a true direction. And I think, that comes with kind of how things were here in Chicago when, Theo came in and they just kind of changed things eternally all the way from the bottom up. And I think that's kind of something that might need to take place. But, that's just an opinion from an outsider. But if I'm a former player and I want a chance to manage and you have that competitive fire, which obviously you do because you got to that level, why wouldn't you want to have an opportunity to be the one that turns it around? But you got to know you're going to take some lumps and bruises along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let me ask you about the Blue Jays and the 3 big horses in the rotation with Bassett, Berrios, and Gausman. And expectations starting the season were off the charts. And it sort of started with those 3 guys, and then everybody else is filling in the blanks. That's changed. If you're in the front office or the manager or one of those 3 guys, and, they've had some bumps in the roads, ups and downs. You can tell mentally, physically, mechanically, they're grinding. Like, you can just see it. I mean, Bassett's sort of lost feel and just command of all that. You can see him trying to work through it on the mound. Any way you'd change going forward? I got about 9 more starts left. Have you ever been a part of, let me ask you this way. Have you ever been a part of anything that with that, like that on a team, expectations, end of the season didn't work out, and they changed the way you're going to pitch, whether they skip starts, whether they gave you this amount of starts left, any changes? Do you believe in that? Would you like that with those 3 guys?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe changes from a fundamental standpoint of what you're going about. Like I went through times in my career where I was struggling maybe a little bit. When I went down to Texas in 2012 and I got traded down there, my first few starts, my slider was not very good. I had 2 of my first 3 starts were rough. I just gave up a ton of runs. And then Mike Maddox and I were throwing a bullpen. I was just grinding trying to throw my slider. It was barely moving, and I didn't know what was going on. And he just said, hey, man, let's keep it simple. What if we just go fast split? Let's go fastball. You got 4 different pitches with your fastball. You got 4 different locations, and use your split. And then if you're feeling good and you're locked in, you want to rinky-dink a slider, go for it. And I think those are the kind of things sometimes we fight so hard to try and get something back that just by kind of scrapping it for a second, not forever, you can get that back. And then for those guys, man, you got to remember, when you're a veteran pitcher, you owe it to your team.
Yeah.
And to those guys that are coming up behind you, those young guys that are watching, on what it takes to go out there and make your start every 5th day and post. And I always took pride that, I always loved starting opening day. It was great. I took just as much pride in starting that last game of the year, and closing it out as strong as you can. And you might not be where you want in the standings or where you want personally, but there's time to turn it around and grind because that's what the Major League season is. You know that, Kev. It's a grind, and you got to prove to yourself and those guys watching, those young kids watching, they're looking up to you whether you like it or not. So, yeah, continue to just figure it out and get after it. And who knows what kind of August and September you can have.
Hey, Ryan, one of the John Schneider, the Jays manager, had a meeting with the veterans on the team after the trade deadline, or I actually think it was a day after before they faced the Yankees, so a couple of days after. And basically his message, and it was aimed at the pitchers more than anything else, was, look, this year hasn't turned out the way we wanted to. We don't want to repeat next year. We've got to see what some of these young guys are about. So I'm going to tell you, there are going to be times where you're starting, you're going to come in, you're going to look at the lineup card, and it may not be your preferred infield. It may not be the preferred outfield, but understand this is why we're doing this. How hard is it, or how much do the veterans play a role in kind of making sure that carries on without being an issue? Because everybody's got goals and everybody wants to finish strong and all that. And to me, I would think it's got to be a little hard if you're Chris Bassett, understanding you've got a contract already. But if you're Chris Bassett and you go out there and you look behind you got a guy at second base you may have seen spring training once. You got a guy at shortstop who wasn't in the organization. It was a waiver claim or whatever. How hard is it to go about doing that?
I think if you keep perspective, in those times where you might, because you're a veteran guy, might feel a little frustrated. I think if you can look in the mirror and remember those times where you were a young guy coming up pitching and the outfielders were having asthma attacks from running after all your lasers in the gap,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of just be, all right, this is a time where I can be a good teammate. And if you do that and support those guys, because like you said, this year hasn't turned out like you wanted it to, and next year you're gonna be competing again. That's why they didn't trade away guys like that, because they are fully focused on trying to compete again next year. And so understand that in order to do that, those young guys got to get better, and to do that through support and through encouragement and teaching. Right? It's okay to be hard too, but as long as you're supportive and you're teaching and you're being a good guy, it's okay to get on somebody. Maybe not on the field, maybe in the locker room, maybe in the batting cage. Like, hey, I need you to pay a little bit more attention. I need you to watch this. Teach them. And that's a tremendous honor we get as we grow in this game. And the more years we get, and the more service time we get, and the experience is that we get an opportunity to be leaders and to be teachers, because we earned it, not just because it was given to us because we got to put a uniform on in the big leagues. We earned that right. And for those guys, and I know a few of those guys, they're like that. And I don't see a problem with any of them being that way. And I think they'll continue to go out there and support and help their teammates. And that ultimately will get you where you want to be next year.
Deb, who's the best team in the National League?
Man, that's a great question. I've been leaning on Philly pretty hard, and I just think they're the most complete team, and they're obviously in a little bit of a rut right now offensively. They got a lot of guys scuffling, hitting under 200 in the last few weeks, which has led to this kind of skid they're on. But I still think that they are. It's hard to go against the Dodgers, but I look at all the injuries, that they've had to battle through, and you wonder what kind of horse race they're running right now. Are they slow playing it? Are guys taking a little stint on the IL meanwhile they're feeling all right just to give them that rest? There's all kinds of avenues. But I think those two teams, when I look at, the league, I feel like they're probably as solid as there gets. And I think that, it's a possible NLCS matchup when I look at how they've been playing.
Do you believe in it? The Padres, for me, I think, have it. I don't really know what it is, but whenever I watch the Padres, they seem like, just by watching. Now, again, I've never been in a clubhouse with that much talent and, just have everything working the way it's supposed to be working. But it's got that feel of it's just a matter of time before we get you. You're going to get got. Is that what it is, and do you feel that? Yeah, do you feel it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watched two teams, and you mentioned them, and they're both tied, I think, in the standings, and that is them and the Diamondbacks.
Yeah.
And there's something about it. And like Mike Schilt, we forget that Mike Schilt took a St. Louis team, turned them around, and then obviously had a disagreement with the front office. They let him go, and then he goes to San Diego, and he's going out there, and he's doing a great job this year. And they had a few things that bring you together, dust-ups with other teams, guys throwing at your hitters, benches clearing, those kind of things. They battled through some injuries early on, and they find themselves right in it. And I believe that they kind of feel that people doubted them. I did early on in the year. I'm like, well, how's this team not good? You look at them, and all of a sudden they're just climbing. They're 5 games out. That's an 8-2 stretch with a 5. You're in it, man. You're 5 games out. You're in it, and they're not 5 games out with a couple games under 500. I mean, this team is good, and the Arizona Diamondbacks the same way. What they went through last year, they know it. They played well against the Dodgers, so I wouldn't be surprised to see both of those teams nipping on the heels of the guys up in L.A.
Yeah, D-backs are second in run scorer in baseball. It's just crazy. You mentioned that team. It's nuts, right? It's nuts.
Ryan,
yeah, they really are, man. It's pretty impressive, and they go out and get a guy like Josh Bell, and he shows up. You show up in that environment. Yeah. When you show up in a winning environment, you come from just losing every day with nobody in the stands to a winning environment with people in the stands, and you just start hitting taters, man. It just feels good. So, awesome. Yeah, they got some good mojo.
Yeah.
Ryan, I know you got a show to get ready for, my friend. We appreciate you doing this. Thanks so much,
You're
man.
the best, buddy. Thanks a lot.
You got it, fellas.
See ya.
Ryan Dempster, host of Intentional Talk on MLB Network. Got a show like in 50.
Could you feel it when you were in a clubhouse covering that team? I don't even know I don't even know if that's a thing. No, I think that's a lot of talent. But boy, it feels like those two teams got it.
You know what? 2015, when walking into the Jays clubhouse, that Sunday that David Price was pitching.
Yeah. I don't know.
That was when, even before, the bat flip and all that, it's one of those things when you go in a clubhouse, you go, there's some guys here.
We're going to get you.
There's some guys here.
Yeah.
And, I'm trying to think. I mean, I've got to tell you the truth. The Expos teams in 93 and 94, the 94 team, when they had the players strike, everybody says they were the best team in baseball. It would have been interesting to see them take on the Yankees. But 93, 94 Expos, you just had a sense it was a different team then, right? They had everything. They had pitching. And, I mean, the thing that stands out for me, individually, I went a whole year with Pedro Martinez pitching, and I've told people this. Literally believed every day was a possible no-hitter. I've never had that feeling before. Every single day was a possible no-hitter. Those are the situations that I remember.
I've been in some winter ball teams like that. I've been on a winter ball team where Moises Alou, I never will forget this. Big Papi walked up to Moises Alou and said, "Hey, can I basically come to your team? Spring training was around the corner." He said, "No, team's too good for you to come and screw it up." Basically, I've been on teams like that in winter ball. I just wonder how it feels like this. 2015, I think it had that feel of the offense. First time through, you're going to get them. After that, they're going to figure you out. They'll adjust. They're going to get you.
The only difference with that team is they didn't have. I don't think they necessarily. The Padres have already kind of had that big disappointment too, right? Like they've been.
Well, they got rid of Soto.
Yeah, they've been disappointing too. Like they've had years where they've been disappointing. People, they spent 18 months hearing that their clubhouse was dysfunctional. He had the whole thing
GM
happen
does too
with
much.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they've, unlike the 2015 team, now that 2015 team had a bunch of guys who'd been knocked down and got up, right? Like Batista. I talk about Eddie going on waivers. Oakland had him and let him go, and the Jays took him back. You look at the guys in that team. There were a lot of them had chips in their shoulder. Even Marcus Stroman, right? Marcus Stroman had a chip in his shoulder. Josh Donaldson was a late bloomer. So it was different. It was like there was a lot of individual guys who had chips in their shoulders. But I watched the Padres play right now, and I get the impression it's like 11 guys who are pissed off about the same thing. And that same thing was how players know, I think. Players know when a team has been disappointing. And I'm sure guys like Manny Machado look at what went on the last 2 years and go, man, we had a lot. We had a lot of
I
things.
I think their rotation's been really good. It's given the lineup a chance to figure the other starting pitcher out, which is a big deal. That gets back to 2015. Yeah. The bullpen's been shut down.
Play
their
their
defense has been good.
They play their ballpark very well.
I think that I think it's something. It's not always something on a lot of teams, but I think with the Diamondbacks and the Padres.
Oh, I think that, and it was interesting. I'm glad Ryan mentioned that too, because I do think the Diamondbacks also have that. It's a different. I'd be lying. I've watched more Padres games than Diamondbacks games this year, but I think they
got a little bit with the division they play in, who's in front of them, where they're at as an organization. What do we got to lose, Phil?
Yeah,
that's really is there expectations with the Diamondbacks? There is, but maybe there's not really if you're a player. So, I'm with you. Just go out there and let it eat.
We've been giving you the chance to win Blue Jays tickets all season long here in Blair and Barker. All you have to do is text the correct answer to our daily baseball trivia question to 590-590. Standard message and data rates may apply. Our last question and answer was, this pitcher is best known for his time as a World Series champion with the Giants, but also had a short stint with the A's and an even shorter stay with the Blue Jays. The answer was Sergio Romo. Today's question is, Sergio Romo gave maybe one of the best interviews ever given by a player. By the time his interview was over, his career with the Blue Jays was done too. That's how long it was. Seriously, his interview the day he arrived here lasted longer.
He came on this show too, and
he's a good. He is.
We didn't talk a lot.
He's
got a lot to say.
He's one
that
of those
long
guys,
career.
Yeah.
He did it throwing one pitch.
Yeah. He was like a poor man's Mariano Rivera.
There you
basically.
go.
But anyhow, today's question is to win. And all kidding aside, he was a lot of fun to be around. I covered him a little bit during the postseason when he was with the Giants. And
got to be a little quirky to be around.
He was one of those guys. If you were a reporter, you walked in and he saw your notebook was empty, he almost started crying because he wanted to fill it up. Notebook. Today's question is to win tickets to see the Jays and A's at the Rogers Center on Saturday, August 10th. This outfielder bookended his career as a Blue Jay, but had a one-year stop in Oakland before finishing his career playing 52 games with Toronto in 2008. Again, this outfielder bookended his career as a Blue Jay, but had a one-year stop in Oakland before finishing his career playing 52 games with Toronto in 2008. I would have got this, but it would have taken me for a few minutes. Text the answer to 590 for your shot to win. See rules at sportsnet.ca/590. Standard message and data rates may apply. Arden Zwelling tweeting out that Bo Bichette and Jordan Romano are both with the Blue Jays. They have been rehabbing in Florida. I presume they're just here for medical checkups. And Arden reporting that the Jays aren't ruling out the return of them this year. And if they could get Jordan Romano back just for a bit, see where he is, that'd be big.
Not for me. I'd rather figure him out in the offseason, have him raring and ready to go, high leverage, go out and get you a closer.
I got a contractual situation happening with him, and I need to know. I'd prefer knowing where he is in terms of health. If he can come back, and I don't know. Again, we don't know. If he can come back, here's where I look at it. If it's going to take, if he's going to be back in time to give you 2 weeks, then fine. But if we're talking about he's going to return and then maybe available for a week, just shut it down. But if you can get him back with a couple of weeks to go on the schedule, I'd like to see where he is.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to have to pay him a ton of money. I would rather him be raring and ready to go.
Yeah, I'm saying
figuring it out.
Well, I'm saying I may not want him being raring and ready to go with me next year. Is what I'm saying. I mean, I want to find that out.
There you go.
I want to find that out.
I mean, it's going to be hard to find another Jordan Romano who can pitch at the back end of the pen. I'm not saying the ninth inning.
They found Jordan Romano the first time,
but well,
they did.
They did, but they're
I mean, the Baltimore Orioles have found 7 Jordan Romanos. 5.
No.
Yeah.
They found so many they went out and got some more. Yeah.
But they found a lot of. I mean, the Orioles basically.
If they don't make it to the World Series, why do you think that would be? Rotation or bullpen? Bullpen. So bullpen's very important.
They put together one of the best bullpens in baseball off the waiver wire 2 years ago, basically, is what I'm saying. The Orioles have find relievers. These guys, they had to trade for a lot of their relievers. So.
Well, I mean, they got assets now to do it. They can go out and do that with, right? I mean, the guys, the everyday dudes that you don't think are going to make your team next year, hey, there you go, buddy. Like, you use them to go out and get what you need.
I guess. I don't. I don't know. Does Addison Barger get you anything?
I don't know. Lo Profito, everybody's, falling all over themselves to thinking that he's the greatest thing since
I almost think the
Astros have ever had. So
I almost think, though, you'd like to have Lo Profito. It'd be nice to have him here because you've got to get.
I mean, let's see. You can't have a lot of dudes who don't know, how to adjust to the elevated fastball. So that's why they stuck him where they're sticking him.
You're already going to have to find 3 batters. 3 hitters. If you can find him, and that, again, I'm not saying that he's going to be a stud.
3 strong.
I mean,
you're asking a lot.
So who are your everyday guys next year? Springer, Varsho, Horwitz, Vladdy. Who are your everyday guys?
Anthony Santander.
Again, you're going to have to find.
Yeah, not 3. Not 3. I don't need 3. Like, again,
right.
You can.
Who's your shortstop?
Bo. We're gonna mint. Yeah, you're not getting anything in the offseason for a hurt Bo. Like, you're just not. And this Bo, no. Like, and again, bows don't grow on trees. Like, I get it. The relationships a little. And this gets back to that. You got to be able to mend fences and say you're better off with us. And then he comes in, he's red hot. Then you trade him at the trade deadline. If your team's out of it, you're not any good. Then that's when you can trade him. You don't let Bo dictate what you're going to do with him and your organization. No. It's not the way it works.
So
people want to yell and scream about that. Not for me.
So who do you want?
Bo's hitting in the 2-hole for me starting the season.
You don't have a catcher.
That's what you could use the assets that you have now to trade to get a guy that can eat some innings.
Yeah,
You've already
said you need a third baseman. That's 2. You probably want a DH. That's 3. So if Lo Profito can play for you in left field, that's what I'm saying. You still, there's a lot of work to do with this.
Well, there's some heavy lifting when it comes to the pen. I think that's it, right? You spend money on a aircraft carrier who can hit cleanup. I mean, you can't go 3 off seasons and not have one of those. Horowitz can't hit cleanup for you starting the season next year. Like, I know why he's hitting it now, but you can't do that, or Varsho, or like, you can't do any of those things. So, the blueprint again is a little here. Like, you got something.
There's no blueprint.
There is. It's not it's not. You got a little money to spend, go out and spend it to the right people. Give it to the right people. We fixed it, Jeff. We have fixed it.
Buck Martinez is our Blue Jays TV analyst on Sportsnet.
Be jealous that I fixed it and you didn't.
He'll join us next. It's Blair and Barker, your one-stop repair shop on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. Hey, welcome back to Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590 The Fan and Sportsnet. Jeff Blair and Kevin Barker for your listening and viewing entertainment.
Final hour before I'm done with you for a week. How long are you gone? 2 weeks.
No, I'm just gone. Today's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think Monday, Tuesday. So that'd be like 5 days.
Sure you don't want to stay the rest of the week next week? What? Huh?
You know,
I can't believe you don't know what a burpee is.
I do.
You do not.
I do.
No, you don't. What is that?
It's an exercise
I do things
thing.
good for your heart. That's what that's for.
It's an exercise thing.
You made fun of me what kind of music I was listening to.
No, it's just that.
What's love got to do with it? Tina Turner when I was doing burpees. Gets me fired up. It's funny.
I mean, music is very much an individual thing. It's an individual taste.
It is. And I'm one of them people that I don't care what other people think about the music that I listen to.
Right.
So
unless I say something about it, and then it bothers the hell out of you.
Well, it does when I'm getting my swole on, and you downplay that. So that's okay.
So you're getting your swole on to Tina Turner today.
I sweat like crazy. Them things are hard, man. Yeah.
Burpees.
Do
a burpee for us right now.
No, you got to have weights.
Okay.
Sorry, I don't do anything without weights.
7:07 is the first pitch tonight at the Rogers Center. Grayson Rodriguez against Chris Bassett, the first of three between the Orioles and Kevin Barker's Blue Jays.
I'll take them.
Trevor Rogers tomorrow against Bowden Francis. These are the scheduled starters. Dean Kramer in the third game of the series against Kevin Gossman. We'll be joined at 5:30 by Roch Kubatko, who covers the Orioles for Masson. And the Orioles having a busy trade deadline. Eloy Jimenez, Zach Eflin, Sir Anthony Dominguez, Christian Pache, and Trevor Rogers all picked up by
Guardians are winning it. Doesn't matter.
I like the Guardians.
They got it.
I like the Guardians. Let's bring in Buck Martinez, our Blue Jays TV analyst on Sportsnet. Buck, thank you so much for joining us. Hey, I trust that your holiday time, your little vacation was well spent.
Absolutely, Jeff. It was well spent. 2 weeks in Italy. You can't go wrong with that.
Wow. No, you can't. You cannot. Well,
No.
good for you. That is.
Good for you, Buck.
That is.
So I am rested and energized for this last couple of months.
Well, that's good. You're going to need to be rested and energized, and wondering if you can hit cleanup. No, I'm not even going to go there.
I can't.
I couldn't hit cleanup when I played.
No, I did throw that one right down the middle. I'll take that. Hey, one of the questions Kevin's asked the past couple of days, and I find this really interesting because there's so much that goes on when you go past the trade deadline. But one of Kevin's questions was, or one of his points was, look, you've now essentially, it seems as if you've said to Bassett, Barrios, and Gossman that we're going to try to run back as much as we can next year. We want you guys to be a part of this. As a manager, Buck, what is going to be John Schneider's biggest challenge with these three guys as we finish out this season?
I don't think there's a challenge at all with those three guys. They're professionals. They have a lot of pride in what they do, and they're going to prepare themselves. I talked to Bassett about this in New York, and he said, this is the first time I've been involved in a cell. He said, it's hard. You see your friends go, you see your teammates go to other places, and we had great expectations for this season, and it's really hard. But at the same time, those three guys, I'm not worried about a bit. I mean, they have pitched a long time. They're the epitome of a professional, and each of them takes a lot of pride in what they do. So, it's going to be hard. And Bassett told me, he says, we see things that, from these younger players that, aren't going to happen when they gain more experience. But you have to figure out a way to kind of, ease up to them and say, hey, we don't really do that when we're big leaguers, and, whether it's on the field, off the field, no matter what. But he said, we'll get through it. And, like I said, I don't think John Snyder's concerned one bit about those three pitchers.
Buck, is there a player that you're intrigued about? One of the young guys, the guys that you need to see the next 50 games that will, sort of weigh you in one direction or the other going forward and maybe a part of this team next year?
Kevin, I think there's a bunch of them that I've really got my eye on. Joey Loperfido first, probably and foremost. Spencer Horwitz. Addison Barger, Leo Jimenez, some of the pitchers that aren't here, Bloss kid they got from Houston. I think there's a lot of holes to be filled. There's no question about that. Who can play third base? Ernie's done a nice job, And with all due respect to Ernie, I think he's had a hell of a year, but I think Ernie's better situated to be a utility player. And I think he'd be a hell of a utility player. You don't need 4 utility players. You need 1. And I think they got to find out if Barger can play third. They got some outfielders in the trade deadline, so I want to find out if he can play third. He's made some adjustments at the plate and is starting to realize some success. So these are the things. And Joey Loperfido, I think I'm not ready to say anything about Joey right now. I haven't seen him play enough. I want to watch him and see him. I like his actions. I like his skill set. I think he's a good kid that plays hard. Obviously, he's got a lot of baseball acumen, and I think he's going to be fine. But as far as, breaking down what you're seeing right now, it's not fair to him, and it's not fair to me because I want to see more of him. But I like his tool set. I think he's got a great tool set, and I think he's going to be interesting here in the last month and a half of the season.
Buck, what about the pen? You see Ryan Burr, you see Brandon Little, Genesis Cabrera. I think Genesis is probably going forward as a part of this just with what you've seen in the past. Yeah, Zach Pop, is it a sinker or is it a two-seamer? I mean, I would think that's what you got to figure out, right? The stuff when it's there because of how hard he throws the arm angle against the righties pretty good. We just consistently don't see that. Is there a name in the pen that sort of stands out to you that you look forward to seeing a little bit more of?
Yeah, Brandon Little. I told him in the spring before we ever saw him pitch in the big leagues, I said, if you throw that stuff over, you'll pitch 10 years in the big leagues. And he's got an electric fastball. He just needs to throw strikes. And his last outing is a great example. John Snyder walked to get Little in a good situation, and he brought him in to face Soto, and he walked him, and then he had to intentionally walk Judge, and then he walked Austin Wells. I mean, that was a perfect spot for Brendan Little to come in, and he just didn't throw strikes. I think he's going to realize that if you're going to get beat, they can put the ball in play. But his stuff is legit. 96 with good movement, bottom of the zone, left-hander. I think he's part of this thing going forward. Zach Pop's another guy. I think he just has to believe that if he throws that two-seamer over the heart of the plate, he's going to get a lot of outs. And I just think that it's all about learning how good your stuff is for these guys. And those are 2 guys that I'm interested in. And I think, of course, when we get Romano back, he's going to be with the team this week, and we'll see where he is. And there are some pieces here, but there aren't enough yet.
Yeah, I was going to say, how important is it? Kevin and I went back and forth about this. How important is it for the Blue Jays to, if they can, right, without rushing things, without risking injury, but to see Romano before the end of the year, just to kind of have that, that last image in their mind's eye when they go into the offseason?
Yeah, I don't think it's that important.
Okay.
I would rather have him be 100% healthy when he hits spring training than rushing back to have him pitch a couple games in September. I just don't see that there's a need for that. We don't know where he's at right now until we see him firsthand, and I know the ball club's looking forward to seeing him. He's going to be up here at the end of this homestand, I believe. So, yeah, I don't think it's important. I mean, we know what he can do when he's healthy, and, obviously with all of the advances in this surgery, that I think it's going to be very interesting. I think he'd be fine.
Oh, what do you Bo. Well, I was going to ask you about Bo, so that's why I had him on my mind. Buck, what do you think they do with Bo when it just comes to the optics of the way the relationship back and forth looks? I'm not a big optics guy, right? We've seen Bo, enough to know that when he's right and doing things with the mechanics that he's going to be the Bo that we all come to love. But optically, Buck, you got to be honest. We know the injury thing has been a problem, but before that, just optically, it just doesn't seem like it's invested's not the right word, but there's something there. How do they fix it, and what do you see this looking like going forward, Buck?
Well, that's good. I think we all felt that way, that something was off kilter a little bit with Bo even before the injuries. I mean, he wasn't swinging the bat well. I think that bothered him a lot, and I think that body language came across to everybody. But, that's something that, John Snyder knows him as well as anybody, probably better than most of us. And he's got to get to the bottom of it and say, you want to be part of the solution going forward, and we'll move from there. And I think they'll have these conversations. I wouldn't be surprised if Bo doesn't play again this year. That calf injury is a very serious injury because everything you do, you initiate pushing off with your calf, whether you're fielding, running, or hitting. So, and he's re-injured it again, so he's not even close to doing baseball activities yet. So here we are in the 6th of August, and we're going to run out of time before too long, and that's another case of what sense does it make to rush him back when you're not sure he's 100%? I don't know.
Alejandro Kirk obviously is going to, well, he has been getting a lot of run this year. That will continue. We spent a lot of time looking ahead to the offseason, Buck, and I'm wondering, one of the things Kevin has said as we look at the catching situations, Kevin said, look, just go out and get a veteran guy who is good behind the plate and pair him up with Alejandro and leave it at that. Do you think that would work, or do you think the Jays need to look at getting a guy in who can maybe 50-50 it with Alejandro?
Yeah, I want to see another athletic guy back there. I want to see another. I don't want to see a veteran backup player for Alejandro. I think, when he's the best, he's probably catching half the time. The other guy's a complimentary player, and obviously you'd like to have a left-handed catcher to split time with him. But, Gabe Moreno just got hurt, and he's on the IL. Arizona Diamondbacks called up a 24-year-old catcher from Reno.
Yep.
It has 24 home runs and 70 RBIs at this point. He was the second pick in the draft in 2021. I mean, catching is really hard to come by, and you've got to just scour all these organizations to see if you can initiate a trade to pick up a quality catcher that you think is going to be an everyday player at some point. And you've got to really roll the dice. You've got to do a lot of studying and find out who that is, but you got to identify somebody they can go out and bring into this. Add this depth to this catching position.
Buck, if you're catching Bassett tonight and the breaking ball's been an issue with him, and I know he's had some bad luck with that, the location's been decent with it, and sometimes the spin on it's been okay, but consistently they've been hammering that thing. You're catching him. How do you get around it? Now, I know you're going to say fastball command, but he doesn't throw as hard as everybody else does. How do you be sort of unpredictable and predictable counts when you are catching a guy who don't have one of his best pitches?
Well, you have to, every game is different, Kevin. You know that. Every single game is a separate little game, and you see what a guy has in the bullpen and see whether that's going to translate into the game. And you're almost like a surveyor early in the ball game. You call a pitch in a particular count. You want to see how it's working, how the hitters are reacting to it, and that'll give you information about making adjustments during the course of the game. Fortunately, Chris Bassett can do that himself. He doesn't have to rely on a catcher. He'll throw a pitch, and he recognizes what's wrong with that particular pitch, and then he'll make the appropriate adjustments. With these left-handers have hit him hard, and he got some good ones in this lineup. He is going to have to run that cutter off the inside corner, off the plate, see if they will offer at it, go back to the sinker ball down and away, run the sinker ball up and away. This is the way he's had to pitch his whole career. He's not had 8 pitches every time he's gone to the mound, so he has to work with what he takes to the mound at the start of this game, and he's been pretty darn good at it for a long time.
Yeah, last one, back-to-back starts against the same team. Who has the advantage, the pitcher or the lineup?
I think the pitcher still has the advantage because he's got the ball in his hand and he can make the appropriate adjustments before the hitters can have to make any adjustments. But, he just hasn't been good in July. He's had a rough month of July. He's turned the calendar now, and hopefully he'll get off to a good start tonight. I mean, this guy for his career has been a heck of a pitcher.
Yep.
And, he knows he's going through a tough time right now, and I guarantee you he's worked hard to get to the bottom of it, and I expect him to be competitive again tonight.
Buck, we're going to let you run, man. Great to hear your voice again. Great to have you back. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks, Buck.
Thanks, fellas. Good to be back.
Buck Martinez is our Blue Jays TV analyst on Sportsnet. He'll have the call of the game tonight along with Ben as the Jays and the Orioles open a 3-game series at the Rogers Center.
Hear him how he talks about the closer and the shortstop. Like it's I'm with him. I think. Do you really need to see him? What if they come in and not any good? Yeah, especially with the calf thing and that being Bo's right calf.
Yeah, we had
a lot of pressure. On
we
that
didn't
thing.
We didn't necessarily talk about Bo and I just look. We both know what a calf injury did to Josh Donaldson's career.
He's older too, but
he's older, but it's hard. I'm with you. But the thing is, and I don't know. Yeah, you raised a good question. I don't know how you end the year with a positive vibe. I hate that word, but
It's true.
with a positive vibe around Bo if he doesn't get back in the field. At the same time, if he does get back in the field and it's more of the same, like it's really an odd situation. I honestly can't, I don't pretend to know how you address it. I mean, the obvious way would be you go out and you sign him to a 6-year contract and everybody's happy. But
I don't think they have to do that. But I do think it's grown-ups getting in a room and figuring it out.
Let me ask you this then. All right.
That's what it is.
Well, here's the thing. He's already under contract through next year.
Absolutely.
If nothing happens,
Yeah.
and Bo reports to spring training,
Yeah.
it's going to be the first question he gets asked. What's going to be the dominant question all spring for Bo? Same thing for Vlad.
Relationship back and forth between the front office and you.
And you know
That's
what?
mine.
And if you're a team that wants to contend, hey, trust me, that gets old awfully fast. That gets old really, really fast. And it's the type of question that this is why I think the Jays have in some ways boxed themselves in here.
Well,
it's also the type of question that understandably fans want answered because there are two guys that fans are invested in this team.
Okay, reality is you gave the shortstop a 3-year deal. Like, that's reality. There's a year and some change left on that thing. You could go into the offseason we're not trading you. Like, you're a part of this.
Right.
Like, you got one more year. We can't find any better than you.
Right.
I can't go on the market and get another Bo Bichette. We're running this thing back. That's why I gave you 3 years. We're playing this thing out. It's up to you to turn the corner here. Like, you don't have to like me, but you got to respect me. The first baseman, you can't say that to. You didn't do that to. I mean, you basically tried to undercut him and give him less than what he got in arbitration.
I mean,
that's facts. Like, you can spin it any other way you want to spin it.
That's true.
Yeah, when basically you're saying that the core is going to take us where we ultimately we're going to end up.
You know,
that's the two people.
That was.
Well, don't go to it then.
That's simply a battle of math. That's a battle of math.
Well,
that's the way.
Your math as an organization is not real good. That's pretty far off.
Wasn't that far off?
So yeah, it was.
How far off was it?
$1.5 million. That's a lot. It is. Yeah, it is. We can argue to that to we're purple. The fact is, you can have one conversation with one player that you can't have with the other.
That is true. That is true.
It's basically the guy that's been around that leads the organization can flat tell the shortstop, we ain't trading you. I can't find any better than you. And we thought enough of you to give you the 3-year deal. We want you to hit the ground running. Gets back to that. You don't have to like me,
but listen,
but you got to respect me.
Listen,
That's it.
I have seen.
Maybe they've done that already.
So much. I've seen so many teams where having a bunch of guys whose contracts expire at the same time, key guys whose contracts expire at the same time, how much that becomes an issue. And the exacerbating factor here, too, is that the team president's contract also expires.
It's only 2 people.
At the same time.
It's 2 players.
Some pitchers do, too.
They're old.
Yeah, but
they're old.
But the point is that
the two that matter are the two that matter.
Kevin, that doesn't matter. You look at it. Look at it. No, look at it as a fan and as a reporter. That's a story. That's a story all year. It could be your last 8 months as a Blue Jay. Could be your last 7 months.
How many fans do you think brought up the point about the 3 starting pitchers that their contracts are going to end? Not many.
Oh, no, but I think
not many. But it does the shortstop and the first baseman. That is the topic of conversation.
Well,
you can nip one in the bud.
That's 2
the
guys. Shortstop.
Yeah, it's the only 2 that matter.
But it also says to you again, your president. You don't know if he's coming back. Like that. That is again. Just trust me. This is going to be the topic of discussion all year next year.
That's an organization,
and especially if they don't get out the gate and start winning. Well, how long do you think it's going to take if this team's in last place in May? When's the trade and Bo and Vladdy aren't signed?
Yeah, I think again as an organization, as a front office, all you can do is put more talent on the field. More talent. You can't go out, in my mind, and get more talent than you have in the shortstop that you already have. Not saying you have to mend that fence, but there has to be a man-to-man conversation when it comes to just optically the way it looks. And the first baseman don't seem to even care. I mean, it's free and easy going out there, but he does need help. It's obvious.
Well,
it's obvious that you can't start the season thinking that the core is going to take us there. No, the two dudes, you just said that. You've tried that already. It ain't happening. That's why I said get you an aircraft carrier. Spend your money on that. Maybe spend your money on a closer. Fill in the blanks everywhere else. Then everybody won't. There's nobody that complained then.
You don't think this Vladdy is an aircraft carrier?
I no. There's a big enough sample size that will tell you when he had his best season ever. When he started having his best season this year.
He was the aircraft carrier in that team.
With what he had around him.
But he was the guy in that team.
Well, I mean, the second baseman was pretty
second
good. The
baseman
right
was good.
fielder
Right
was pretty
fielder
good.
was good.
Wow, there was a lot there.
His numbers
the second baseman had in the 40 homers.
Yeah. But Bo was
he wasn't doing it all, is my point.
But Vladdy was the guy that got the MVP votes.
He wasn't doing it all. That's the point.
He still has to be the key guy. I don't think you're going to get. I don't think you're going to find.
Good luck.
Are you going to find a better hitter than Vladdy?
Yeah.
I think Anthony Santander is better than Vladdy.
I think switch hitting, well, better's strong. But I'm
playing devil's advocate here. I'm playing devil's advocate. I know what you're saying. I'm playing devil's advocate.
I think they need to bring in a guy that's a legitimate cleanup hitter who can carry their team for weeks at a time. That's what I think. Whoever that name you think is, if they don't do that, then
Pete Alonso.
Good luck. Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, but Pete's. Wouldn't you rather have the? Now again, this also.
We're playing fantasy baseball here, but that's fine. Sports talk radio. We can do that. We do that all the time.
Man,
we stopped dealing in reality ages ago.
Oh, this show's got some reality to it. I mean, you could go combination, Brandon Lau, Teoscar Hernandez. You could go only Anthony Santander. You could go Tyler O'Neill, Brandon Lau. You could go Teoscar, Tyler O'Neill. Like you could go Christian Walker, who's a little older. Like you could combination these things and get what you need. Point is, there is more talent out there. Plain and simple, bottom line is talent in the American League East on the everyday list. Where does it rank?
And
the Blue Jays.
And further,
it ain't there.
No,
that's the point.
And further to your point,
it's reality.
If you look at the guys that they have brought in the offseason, their big signings the last 2 years, Brandon Belt's out of the game.
Turner will be out of the game after this year.
Turner will be out of the game at the end of this year. Kevin Kiermaier, God love Kevin Kiermaier, but he was waived.
Yeah.
And these are your three IKF. Those are your off-season acquisitions. And I mean, I remember we had Ross Atkins on a couple of years ago, and I asked him about a lack of a cleanup hitter, and he said, "Well, we got Brandon Belt but it's never a good sign when you bring guys in and you're their last stop, and that's your key signing. Your key signing in the offseason was a guy who was out of the game after a year." But anyhow, listen, this is going to be the topic of discussion going forward. And I keep getting back to the thing that I hang my hat on is the fact that I got ownership that spent $235 million.
They seem willing. And you have assets now, too, and because of the way you traded at the deadline, which you did a really good job.
And at no point. And I would really invite people to go back and look at the stuff that was written even when Alex Anthopoulos was general manager here. I remember Alex Anthopoulos at the winter meetings one time talking about there being a connection, a direct connection between attendance and payroll. And I looked at him, and it was an immediate session. When it was done, I said, you sound like you're the GM of the Montreal Expos. Basically saying, hey, the more people in the stands, the higher our payroll is going to be. I wasn't criticizing him, but that was the reality. And Alex's response was,
it went hand in hand.
It went hand in hand.
Yeah.
When's the last time you've heard Mark or Ross say, man, you know what?
I don't think I've ever heard of it.
We could have done that, but,
I'm just saying, I'm not saying it's not going to take some creativity to get done what they need to get done. But until they actually do it, how do you take them seriously?
I feel the need to keep reminding people that as dire as things seem, it's been a lot worse. There have been many more seasons where I've thought there's no hope. There have been a few seasons where I looked at that and I just thought, man, I mean, I remember when Interbrew owned this team, I used to think, I used to talk to Godfrey about this all the time. At some point, when do you guys sit down and have a conversation about building a new ballpark? Because this thing's falling apart. Those were the issues that we were dealing with back then. And people, you need to remember that. You need to remember that at least there's going to be some money there to make this thing better. And of course you get, people say you're just shilling for your bosses. No, I'm
stating the obvious.
Stating the obvious, man. Because I've covered teams where ownership didn't want to spend a cent on it. I covered a team where ownership didn't want to spend money on hot water in the 100 level, for God's sake. Anyhow, it's good to hear Buck again.
Yeah.
It was interesting hearing his take on Alejandro Kirk, too. Buck seems to think you need to
we've seen it.
Aim high.
Why should we think it's any different when they tried to do this into last year, beginning of this year?
It's so hard.
When Danny,
it's so hard to find. To find an everyday catcher.
Is it?
I think so.
Why?
Yeah.
I mean, it's never been easier, I would think. I'm not taking anything away from a catcher.
Danny Jansen was the closest you've had to an everyday catcher.
I think they're a big deal. I think they do a lot. I mean, everything sort of revolves around them when it comes to just getting a dude through it. But, I mean, is that the first thing they need to do as soon as the season ends? Not in my mind.
They need to
Not in my mind.
They need to get a hitter. It doesn't matter what position they do.
Big boy.
Yeah. Doesn't matter what.
When he walks in that clubhouse, they're going, whoa, what?
Anthony Santander.
I mean, you kidding me? I mean, I don't even know if he'd want to come here, but you sprinkle enough money at him. Boy, that money talks, don't it?
Roch Kubatko, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does indeed. Roch Kubatko covers the Orioles for Masson. That is the Orioles broadcast network. He'll join us next. We'll take a look at the Orioles-Jays series. It starts in about an hour and a half at the Rogers Center with Grayson Rodriguez and Chris Bassett. It's Blair and Barker on Sportsnet 590, The Fan, and Sportsnet. All right, we're back. 7:07's the first pitch tonight. Blair and Barker will be doing Blue Jays talk following the game.
It's your last one for a while.
Yeah, my last one for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Saturday, Sunday. We don't do it anyhow. Monday, Tuesday. I think it's like 7 days. 7 days off. I'll come back and they'll be in the middle of that soft part of the schedule. You never know.
You're the only one right now that looks at the schedule and used Joey Votto to talk about Horowitz playing time. Like, it's just...
No, my whole point.
Man.
See, people are going to be joining. They're going to go, is Joey Votto even with the team? No, he's not with the team. My whole point was, if Joey Votto comes up and plays first base or DH, that will increase the possibility that Spencer Horowitz will only be at second base, which is where he should be, instead of being moved around all over the place. That's all.
Sounds like
You're making it sound like I'm saying that he's gonna take his spot, and I am not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. Of course, on the other hand, Barker also doesn't like the idea. Barker doesn't like the idea of Joey Votto being up here to begin with.
No, that's not. Again, I said why. If you're a future Hall of Famer and you're going through this for what? 10 at-bats? I
Putting
guess.
the bow in your career, man.
That's what it is? I would think Hall of Fame is the bow. That's just me. He can do what he wants.
Let's bring in Roch Kubatko. He covers the Orioles for Masson. Roch, thanks so much for joining us today. This is what happens when your team is out of the race. You spend an awful lot of time talking about whether the 135-year-old first baseman at AAA is going to come up. But then I remembered you covered the Orioles, so you know this more than anybody.
Yep.
Dude, I know this drill, believe me. I would sit there every day like, what am I going to write about now? So, yes, I've been on that side of it for quite a while.
Yeah, my favorite thing was when a team calls up a guy, the thing you want to do is you want to find out if the person who is called up knows somebody who's really important, so you can make a story out of that. That's gold. didn't work with
That's
Barker.
right.
No.
Their creativity really comes out in these moments.
Absolutely does. Hey, speaking of creative, I mean, there's really no segue. The Orioles got through the trade deadline. Did you like their ads? And this is a team that's going to be in the postseason. Newsflash: are they a better playoff team right now in your mind than they were last year?
Ooh.
The reason I will say yes, besides that year of experience, is compared to last year, that's tough because there's no Kyle Bradish. That was a huge, huge loss. But at least at the deadline, they got Zach Eflin, who I don't think is Kyle Bradish. But in a short series, certainly, if you have Corbin Burns, Grace Rodriguez, Zach Eflin, it's a pretty good three there. But that experience is going to help them in the postseason this year. But really, if they could have had Bradish with Burns as a 1-2, that would have been really big. And having Tyler Wells, who really could be a dominant multi-purpose reliever, and he's out, and we thought, well, John Means, what we envisioned is not happening at all. And it amazes me that team has still been in first place most of the year with the massive amount of injuries they suffered. And now, of course, Jordan Westberg, who is their everyday second or third baseman, one of the really, really good young hitters in the game. He's out now. Danny Coulombe, the lefty who can get lefties and righties out, the bullpen, high-leverage guy. They're hoping to get him back in September. So this team, I mean, it's all across baseball, obviously. This team's really been racked with injuries. So, in some ways I'm like, yeah, I think they're in a pretty good position. And I look back and think, well, how much better could they have been if they hadn't had all these injuries?
Roch, who's the most important everyday player for the last 50 games of the season and maybe going into the playoffs?
Oh, that's a good question. It may end up being Jackson Holliday. That's not a lot of pressure to put on the kid, right?
No.
I mean, 20, he played 10 games and was sent down. He's back now. He looks like a different hitter. But if he's going to be your everyday second baseman, which is how this looks, and there's no Westberg, to have Holliday be the version we're seeing right now and the guy that everybody anticipated as a 1-1 and the top prospect in baseball would be huge for them. If you were getting the 2 for 34, 18 strikeout version, then that can be crippling. And again, it would just magnify not having Westberg and Jorge Mateo for that matter. So I think it gets a lot of pressure put on him. But if they can get Holliday to play the way he has been and be able just to be that everyday guy second, that's going to be a huge lift for them. You pretty much know what you're getting from a bunch of these other guys. You know what you're going to get from Gunnar. Adley's going to heat up again. He was starting to show signs, but they really, really need Holliday to be now ready. And there's a reason why he was untouchable, and so was Kobe Mayo, and so were some others. But that was a conversation ender anytime somebody brought up Holliday. This is his time now that he has got to really step up. What's
the difference between him right now as a hitter compared to when he was first up here? Is it simply that, it's the middle of the season. He's played more baseball. He's probably closer to himself right now in the middle of a season than he would be coming out of spring training.
That's it exactly. He just needed more at-bats. I know a lot of people didn't want to hear that. But, the Orioles normally do not bring up a prospect from AAA until they've had a certain number, unpublicized, non-publicized, certain number of plate appearances, whatever. And he would have been a major exception if he had broke camp with the team. He played at 4 levels. And, again, he turned 20 in December. So for him to make the opening day roster would have just been a shocker and gone against what they normally do. He didn't make it. They brought him up pretty quick, and then 10 games later sent him down. It made more sense now when you step back and look at it to just have him get more experience. And also, he just seems more relaxed. The second time around, he knows what to expect. It was a big deal when he came back, no doubt, but it is not the same huge national media swarm. And he was crammed in the dugout at Fenway when he came up to make his debut, and he handles it really well. He's so super mature, and I'm sure it's because he grew up around it anyway with his dad, Matt, but he just seems more relaxed, comfortable. He's not as jittery or jumpy in the box, as Brandon Hyde pointed out. And he's just able to be a baseball player. He's staying behind the ball more. But I think a lot of it is just already having that experience in the extra at-bats. As much as that disappointed a lot of fans that wanted him up, he needed that. And now we're seeing him having the good at-bats, hitting the ball to all fields. I mean, he homers to right field. He put a ball in Utah Street, a grand slam, and then he had a double off the left field wall in Cleveland. He's getting hits against lefties and righties. He looks like the hitter that he was supposed to be. I just think it's as simple as experience and just being able to relax a little more and concentrate on playing baseball and not being the guy that every time he gets near his locker, there are 20 reporters waiting for him.
Biggest worry for the Orioles going into the playoffs is what?
The bullpen, for one thing. I mean, they tried to reinforce it. Sir Anthony Dominguez. I don't want to say Sir Anthony Hopkins. I keep thinking I'm going to say that. Silence of the Lambs.
I know, man. You want to say it so badly. I do too.
So badly. And Gregory Soto, and it's, so far it's been kind of a mixed bag of results. But, they weren't willing to give up whatever Miami was asking for Tanner Scott, for example, as a rental. Craig Kimbrell is being Craig Kimbrell. He had the dominant stretch where we were like, how is this guy snubbed for the All-Star game? He hit a couple little rough patches earlier in the year, like late April, early May. And what he's going through now, where he was given resets, where he's pulled from the closer's role, he'll get back in it. But they've got to have the really good version of Craig Kimbrell, and they're going to, until they get Coulombe back, you're counting on a couple other ex-Philly relievers that I know fans are like, wait, we're recreating the back end of the Phillies bullpen? Is that what we're doing? But there's some big arms. They feel like it was an upgrade. It probably is. Doing that, it allowed them to move Albert Suarez into the bullpen, a multi-inning guy they really needed, a bulk guy. But I think there's still going to be those concerns about which version can Kimbrell be consistently good, especially when they need it. And will these guys as well? Soto had a disastrous debut, didn't have a clean outing his next time out, but was okay. But the bullpen, I think, is still one of those things where it's fingers crossed.
Every time we talk about the Blue Jays, we talk about next year going into the season, they need to get dudes that are predictable. And I look at Grayson Rodriguez, who's pitching for the Orioles tonight, and I think to myself, finally, the stuff is added up to being predictable, right? The changeup, just the power, the extension at 7'3" that he has. Is he now, in your mind, you've seen him up close and personal a little bit more. I'm sure you've talked to him more than I have. Is he now, as an Orioles fan, can I look at him as predictable?
Yeah. I mean, he's going to have an occasional hiccup here and there, but he is a much better version. And we saw it after he came up the last time. And, again, he was also under a tremendous amount of pressure. But, it all starts with fastball command. I know that's cliched, but everything works off of that. And he didn't have it before, and he does now, and then he can play off the other pitches. He's a guy that if one thing isn't working, he can go to one of his secondaries, one of his other secondaries, which he wasn't able to do before. And I think, again, that's also just experience and learning how to pitch and trusting your stuff and everything else. And, yeah, the delivery and everything kind of got cleaned up. He's more confident once you have a little bit of success. I know pitcher wins don't matter, but I think he's going for 14th or something like that. I mean, for what that's worth, he's tied for the Major League lead. And he is, at least, with Burns being the number one, is absolutely the number two guy in this rotation, and legitimately so. It's not by default. It's not like Eflin's going to slide in there. He's a legit number two, and it's exactly the guy that the previous regime, Dan Duquette, that front office, drafted and anticipated the guy he was going to be.
I'm looking at Anthony Santander. He's one home run away from tying his career high. I believe he's got more home runs. I'm reading the game notes here. He does. He's got more home runs since the start of June than Aaron Judge and Shohei Ohtani. I know the Orioles have got some wiggle room with their payroll next year. A lot of it. I mean, I don't have to tell you, Roch. He turns 30 this year. It's not like he's an old guy. Will they take a run at re-signing him, even with the depth they have?
I think you'd have to consider it at least, and they'll see how the market plays out. I don't know how much of a hometown discount you get, though I know he loves it. I'd be curious to get your opinion on because I have people ask me, like, what's the comp, or what do you think the market's going to be for him? I mean, he's a switch hitter with power who is playing a really good right field as well, great clubhouse guy, and when the weather warms up, I mean, he's going to start slow every year. As soon as it warms up, so does he. He went on a binge in June. And they don't have Austin Hayes. He was dealt to the Phillies. There's no guarantee that Cedric Mullins is going to be tendered a contract before he reaches free agency. Kyle Stowers is part of the deal to the Marlins. So, there might be a little bit of room there now to go ahead and bring him back as your primary right fielder. And Kowser will still get he can be a regular guy. He's still got Kjerstad in the organization and whatever else they end up doing. So I think there's a possibility they could. And if you replace him, if you let him walk, you're basically looking for that 30 home run plus guy, unless you're confident that Kjerstad is finally going to get off the shuttle, play every day, and be that guy. just from the left side. So, I asked some of the beat writers, and the range was pretty ridiculous, 3 for 40. It's not 2002, so I don't think that's going to happen. Somebody else went a high, 5, 115, whatever. I would think he could certainly get a fourth year. I'm like 480. Like, does that sound about right to you?
Oh, man, I would.
It's per year, right? I think that's where you would start. He's making seven and a half this year, right? It's the per year thing, and then you just add what you think you would want to give him to get him here, right? That's the question. I'm sure if the Blue Jays wanted to try and get him, they'd have to add the extra year. So if the Orioles offered 3, the Jays would have to offer 4. It's just per year what you want to give him.
I mean, at that age, I'd go 5 years for a guy easily. At that age,
5's a lot.
And he's in great condition.
Yeah,
He had a personal trainer out of Miami who basically travels with him, and he's in the old best shape of his life, but he really is. And again, I mean, you're getting that power from both sides of the plate, and a guy who you don't have to worry about defensively. I think very underrated. He was a Gold Glove finalist, I think, in 2020. But I mean, he's really, improved because he's moving so much better, and the way he's been training is more for a baseball player than a guy who's just trying to get big and strong, as if he was in the NFL. So you don't have to worry about conditioning. And again, just a great clubhouse guy. So yeah, maybe you do end up getting that 5th year, and then the Orioles would have to look at what are they willing to do. It is new ownership. So what I used to easily dismiss, I can't easily dismiss anymore. I assume they're not going to get in a bidding war for Corbin Burns. But hey, it's new ownership.
Yeah.
So, we don't know yet. This is all, but we have not gone through an off season with David Rubenstein yet. So we don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head there. Even with the amount of wiggle room they have, if you are the Orioles, you've got all those position players. I think it behooves you to try to load up in pitching, try to get Burns signed and get somebody else in, and then maybe double back and try to get Santander done. But I mean, I think he makes 11.7 this year. It's like anything. It depends on the market, right? Once Pete Alonso's off the market, and then you're starting to look at, okay, who can I bring in as a middle of the order hitter? Boy, if I've got that guy available, not everybody's going to be able to sign Soto. Not everybody's going to be able to sign Pete Alonso. To me, he's a guy I'd like to bring in, and maybe he can parlay that into 5 years.
And if you're the Yankees, you look at that right field porch, and you're thinking Santander from the left side. I mean, absolutely, I think they get involved. And then it is, again, the Orioles don't normally get in bidding wars, so I'm not sure how that's going to pan out.
No, that's a great point. If you're the Yankees and you lose Soto, you want to keep Judge in center. I mean, Anthony Santander would be
he'd be my first choice.
Form fitted. Roch, thanks so much for doing this, man.
Sure, plus the Yankees want to stick it to the Orioles.
Yeah, I was going to say.
The other reason, but
the added benefit of that. Thanks for doing this, man.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, thanks, guys.
See ya.
Roch Kubatko covers the Orioles for Masson.
See, everybody wants Anthony.
Well,
I said he made 7.5. That was last year. He made
11-7.
Way to fix
and trying to see who his agent is. Not that necessarily matters all the time, but
I'm sure 5 at 20 a year would do it.
Oh, he'd get more than. I think he'd get more than 20. 11-7.
That's a lot.
Would you pay him Vladdy money?
No. Vladdy's younger.
Different position.
Younger. Age matters. But I'd pay both. That's what I said. That's the thing you got to ask yourself if you're the front office for the Blue Jays. If you've changed your mind about Vladdy and want to sign him, or you feel like you have to, you only do that if you're bringing in another bat. You can't do it just to be doing it, and that's all you're doing.
Well, you're right.
That's pointless.
You're right.
They've already went down this road. It ain't working.
But, again, the guy is going to be 29 on opening day. He's not going to be
he's
going to be 30 on opening day. Forgive me. He's going to be 30 on opening day.
Starts with a 3 instead of a 2.
And he is in great shape.
I'm in the best shape of my life, Jeff.
No, you're not. I am. You're definitely not. Despite all your burpees.
You try burpee.
You try burpees.
I said 20. Hard, man. My wife always says, what's wrong with you? Died twice just now.
What?
My wife always asks me after I do those, what's wrong with you? And I always say the same thing. I died twice down there.
I thought you said you died twice.
No, I did when I do burpees. They're hard.
So it's interesting hearing Roch talk about Jackson Holiday, different guy than he was earlier this year when, they were printing T-shirts up for his major league debut. And I kind of, huh?
What's wrong with that? Moneymaker.
No, it's a moneymaker. No, but I'm
Yeah.
saying that does put a little bit of added
Pressure's the thing?
pressure
Jeff?
on you.
Well, you say it's not. When I say about the Vladdy and Bo thing to start the season and expectations, you always say, wow, that's a thing.
No,
you always yell and scream at me.
Pressure is only a thing
pressure.
when you. No, pressure's not a thing when you say it's a thing. I say it specifically to disagree with you. When you don't say it's a thing,
really?
I say it's a thing. Of course.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, if people want consistency of opinion and consistent point of views, folks, this is sports talk radio, even though we're on TV. Ain't no consistency here. There's no morality here. There's no consistency here.
You speak for yourself, because none of that's true on this side of the table. All right? Speaking from experience. I was the top prospect once, a lot of expectations. And I had the worst manager in the history of sport.
I'm gonna ask a really dumb question. Was there a bigger difference between you as a hitter at the start of the year and in the middle of the year?
Absolutely.
No. Let me finish.
Absolutely.
The older you got.
Got slower. I had to think about it more. I couldn't swing at as much stuff. So
okay, so that's what I
older and slower.
That's what I was getting
didn't
at.
do it the way I used to.
Jackson
do it.
Holiday hitting in August is a different guy than we saw hitting in April.
He's
or whenever
20.
it was.
No, I think he's not. The leg kick is not as pronounced as it was. You can't do that here. They add and subtract. They're very unpredictable.
Think Addison Barger found that out?
I think it gives him a better chance. I think Addison has come to the realization there's opportunity here. It's not like Horowitz is that much better than Addison. It's not like Davis Schneider is that much better. It's not like Ernie Clement's that much better. There's room to show. And there's room for you to be on the team next year. There's more money in the big leagues. Why not me being there? So, I think the urgency, I think the opportunity, I think he's ups and fell on it here. Sorry about that door closing, but that's open for me to have an opportunity to show dudes that I can do some things. And if you've noticed, they ain't got too much left-handed pop in this organization.
Not pop, they don't.
And if a guy can figure it out, why not? I mean, he's got a cannon. Why can't you stick him in left and trade the dude you just picked up from the Astros?
You already want to trade. Joey Loperfido hasn't even made his debut at the Rogers Center, and you want to trade him.
When's the last time I said that they actually had options to trade? Now they do. Now you just got to get creative and do the right thing.
He's going to make his Jays debut at the Rogers Center tonight, and you've already traded Joey Loperfido.
Lump that in with the things that people care about, like the Joey Votto thing.
Unbelievable.
I mean, you were on a roll today about things people could care less about.
Unbelievable. He hasn't even made his debut as a Blue Jay.
He'll get chapped just like everybody else does who lays into one to left center that don't go anywhere and it's an out. He'll throw his helmet and be like, ball carrier.
That used to go out. That went out at Minute Maid.
Yeah, goes out for everybody else except seems like this thing. There you go.
We get to see Ryan Mountcastle hit at the Rogers Center tonight, too.
Take the worst BPs in the history of the sport. You'll never forget that, will you?
No, I won't.
His teammates just yelling and screaming at him like you're the worst hitter we've ever seen. And then go out and get 9 hits and 3 at bats against the Jays.
It was remarkable. I wish we had
We should have filmed it.
We should have filmed it. That's it for us.
Yeah,
we'll be doing
Blue
Blue Jays
today. You were.
I carried this. We'll be doing Blue Jays talk tonight. Ben Ennis will be sitting in this chair for 5 or 6 days from this point on.
Feel free to stay longer.
Have yourself a great day.